Welcome back to the Justice Factor as we discuss the big news stories of the year and what they mean. My guests are Firial Hafaji, Editor-in-Chief of the City Press newspaper, and Stephen Reuters, Senior Journalist with Eyewitness News. Guys, let's move on from, before we move on, Stephen, you spoke about the EFF and unlike many of us, you don't give them that much traction. But, you know, look into your crystal ball here and tell me, what do you think they'll do in the election? 10%, 15%,
no.
5%?
No. I think 3%, somewhere around there. It could change. I mean, you know, the thing is, what you've got to also take into account is how what the other parties will do. There's only one place in this country that Julius Malema can out-organize the ANC, and that's in Marikana, right? Everywhere else, the ANC is going to be better campaigning, better organizing. I mean, they're going to be able to better resourced, and organization matters. You know, what the bigger parties have is speaker after speaker who can have their own rallies. You know, people will go and see a rally where the main speaker is the top 20 or 30 leaders of the ANC. I mean, people really going to see a rally addressed by Floyd Shivambu? I don't think so.
They might go to one addressed by Andile Mkutamo, but you never know. Firial, what do you give them?
Look, Stephen is a much better political commentator than I am, but I'd say 10%, yeah. As a first go.
Really? 10% is
8
big.
to 10.
That's bigger than COPE in 2009.
How much did COPE get?
7%.
7.
And that was a million
I think
votes.
they're going to equal that. They're kind of their brand presence, and if you track the stories of the election, still, I think we must all poll properly in the next 4 months.
Yeah, but you
I do
definitely
think it's more than
3%.
Yeah.
Interesting.
I admit I'm a minority.
Ahang came in with much excitement.
Yeah.
Mampela Rampela, where do you think they're playing? Are they getting traction, Firial?
I think in the commentariat, people have written them off because Mampela, I thought a great move to reveal how much she owns, what her personal wealth is, failed miserably. But I think she's going to surprise us, or at least that's what her people are saying.
Stephen?
I think around 1%. You know, you've got to actually get off your rear end and campaign. If you're going to be a politician, you actually have to be a politician.
But your point is opposite here, because who else is going to stand on a podium and address Ahang members? It's only her.
And she's not even doing that. I mean, she's not doing the interviews. You try and get an interview with her, you need to give them 48 hours notice. Really? In South Africa's political field? Good luck.
Okay, guys, let's move on to two big news stories. Oscar Pistorius and Nelson Mandela. The world was watching us on these two big ones. Did we do well by Nelson Mandela in the way we covered it as journalists?
I think in the way we covered it as journalists, sure. I think it's very hard to not just get the facts right. The facts are easy on this story. It's hard to set the tone. And I was really impressed by particularly ENC and other channels who had all what, you know, professionals would call the imaging. So all of that ready to go, and it was respectful, it was good. I thought everyone got the tone right. And that's really tough. And the sort of moving moments, you know, the lying in state, I think in a way, that was one of the highlights because it set the tone so nicely. And I thought that was really good. And then also I was impressed by the simple camera feeds coming out of Klunu over the last little while, where you really started to see some really good television that allowed everyone to actually grieve as it was happening. And it's very hard to do that.
I think the public broadcaster, the SABC, did brilliantly. I watched it a lot of the time. I might
talk to you about that, because they officially pulled the booing at the FNB, for example. I mean, news is news.
That was an error, yes. But I think that if you were glued to it, you saw their documentaries. I constantly heard the voice of Madiba. I thought that they did a great job across many, many platforms. Yes, all year we've been tracking their censorship, and I do think you saw it once again, but I think you have to give credit where credit is due. And then on the whole, internationally, locally, I think the media did a fantastic job, especially the 24-hour broadcasters.
Were we too respectful, though? I just remember when Nelson Mandela went in and out of Mediclinic in Pretoria, the stories were broken by, for example, CBS and other foreign news outlets, and we were sort of, we don't want to break the story. Were we too respectful?
I don't know if we were too respectful. I mean, I think every broadcaster had the same problem in a way, which is no one wants to jump the gun too much on this particular story. Also, some stories are very hard to break, and I think that was one of them. And full credit to Deborah and CBS for doing that. I think also people were deathly scared of being shut out of any arrangements. And so they treaded very carefully. And for them, that was probably the right decision. In terms of were we too scared, you know, it's one of those stories where unless you had a contact that told you what to look for, how would you know to even ask that question? Yeah. You wouldn't think that the ambulance carrying Nelson Mandela breaks down. I mean, you wouldn't think that. So someone had to tell you.
Yeah. Firial Haffajee, Oscar Pistorius was such a big story. Another one where you had the international media boom coming to South Africa, and suddenly you had guys running all over the place. They're coming back when he goes back to court.
I mean, wasn't that Valentine's Day? It was also broken on Twitter by Bill. And wasn't it one of those occasions where you say, no, this can't be, never. And then as it unfolded, I mean, it's a cautionary tale of our times. Fascinating. I think it's going to probably set the tone for 2014.
Okay, guys, let's go to the fun part. I want you to tell me those two international stories. And after that, after we have a very brief discussion, I want your winners and losers of the year.
So my internationals that I thought were very big for us was the Westgate bombing. And then also the CAR. Probably a little underreported because of the kind of year it's become. And there's lots else. Ed Snowden, the NSA leaks, very big for us.
I thought both Westgate and CAR are so relevant to us here. I mean, the number of times people have spoken about our home affairs and our passport system being abused and so forth. And CAR, we lost what, 17 soldiers there?
13, yes. Yeah. And it's a story that's still continuing, you know. I mean, you almost wonder if we left out. But I want to pick up on the phone hacking, because I do think that has a really big implications for us. You know, when we know that our intelligence services are politicized, there's plenty of evidence of that. We know that you can't always trust the close family members of the minister responsible. The idea of people's phones being hacked, I think, is something we need to start really thinking about here in South Africa. Now,
I was interested that Barack Obama stood there and spoke about these beautiful things at Nelson Mandela's memorial. But, you know, the drones, the phone hacking, you know, he came immediately after Dilma Rousseff of Brazil. And the NSA had hacked her phone. I mean, this is quite a big thing.
And Angela Merkel's phone.
Exactly.
And he got smacked down really badly by the courts.
It's so nice to see the leader of the free world being smacked down. Okay, Stephen Reuters, give me your winner of the year.
I think my winner of the year has to be Nelson Mandela, because this last time has reminded us about everything he did for us. So in a way, I mean, you could always say he's the winner of you know, so many years in South Africa, but I think that was really very important. A co-person, though, would be the public protector. I think would you know, so if I was allowed two, those would be my two.
Very powerful ones. Are you going to come from a different angle?
No, not really. We news people. I've got 3 M's. Mandela, for another reason though. I believe that he made us stop even in death and reflect, and I think we're going to look at our leadership very differently from now on. So I love that. Malala, your namesake. I think she's been great this year. And then amazing. Obviously my 3rd M, Madonsela, Thuli Madonsela, for just being a moral beacon.
Mandela, Malala, not this Malala, and Madonsela, very powerful news. Okay, your loser of the year, Stephen Reuters.
It has to be President Jacob Zuma, for being given so many opportunities to prove everyone who has perceptions that he is somehow corrupt or that he doesn't follow the letter of the law wrong, and every time he fails to take that chance. Every single time something happens and we realize that actually we have a man whose friends use one of our Air Force bases as their own. We have a man who is not going to let us hear the conversation that got him off, that worked to his advantage, not anyone else's, his. And, you know, in a way, the booing really typified all of that for me.
Firial Haffajee, you get the last word.
I'm not going with you this year. 3 years on, every year, no, I'm changing it. So for me, it's different. So it's rapists, again, because the Anine Boyson case, I think, made us wake up, but we keep waking up and going back to sleep. And then the second is Nkandla, as a symbol of splurge and a high life. And I think we're getting tired of it.
Firial Hafaji, Stephen Grootes, thanks so much for your time. Well, you've heard what the experts have to say. After the break, we give you our winner of the year, and of course, the big one, the loser of the year.
News that moves. ENCA.com.